everyone, welcome to another episode of Photography Takeaway with Laura. Today we're going to discuss how to write an evaluation about your photography or your filmmaking work. So every unit on the UAL qualification asks you to critically evaluate your work, and this has been something that people have been struggling with since I started teaching photography and media. I myself struggle to talk about my own work, and when marking students' work, the evaluations are often weaker than the rest of the work, and this is always a part of the criteria that people fall down on. So today I'm going to talk you through 6 key points to consider when evaluating your work, as well as tips and tricks to make your evaluations that little bit better. So the first thing you should be considering when writing your evaluation is how much of your project you need to discuss. So your evaluation is not just there to talk about your final outcome, but it is there to talk about the whole process of creating your final outcomes, from your pre-production to your research, your production processes, even your experimentation, and then through to that final product. It's really important to work in a chronological order, considering the entirety of your process rather than just the end outcome. There will be parts of the project that went well and parts of your project that could have been better, but make sure you're discussing each part of your project regardless of its success. The second point to consider is new skills or techniques that you've learned. When in college, we will try and cover a variety of different skills, both in photography and filmmaking. This could potentially be new to you. It might be something you've covered in the past that you wanted to cover again. It might be something that you've covered quite a lot in outside of college time, but there will be some of these that will be potentially new to you. For example, during the second year, we've sometimes visited the dark rooms and worked with analogue film cameras. For a lot of students, this is a new skill, and it is really important to reflect upon these new skills in your evaluation. It might be something as simple as using a new type of camera or experimenting with a new lighting style in the TV or photography studio. It is really important to reflect on any new skills or techniques that you've learned, especially as you progress from first to second year. It can serve as a reminder to yourself to see how far you've come over the lifespan of the course. Following on from developing new skills, it is also really important that you reflect upon skills and techniques that you would like to develop further in future projects. It might be useful to talk about the Blackmagic cameras in the TV studio, especially if you want to experiment with this type of capturing footage more in the future. Make sure you write about things like this. It is all crucial in reflecting upon your development at a later date. For our fourth point, you will need to discuss what went well during the project. Don't feel like you have to be modest here. It is a really great chance to be able to be positive about your work and your progress. Something I've noticed from looking at evaluations in the past is students have often written 1 point for something that went well, but a whole paragraph about what could have been improved. If your project didn't go to plan, what did you learn? What can you reflect upon that is positive about the experience? It could be that you positively developed your time management and appreciation if your work was submitted really close to the deadline, or your communication skills in working with others to make sure all the work was submitted regardless of what happened during that project. There is always something positive to discuss. For our fifth point, you need to discuss what could have been improved. Remember, this is for your whole project, not just your final piece. As I mentioned before, most students seem to be quite good at this part, but make sure you're not being too hard on yourself. Comment on things that might have been out of your control, such as weather implications or the current coronavirus pandemic, which has affected many of your final major projects, but make sure you don't blame this on yourself. You could also discuss here how you would prevent this again from happening in the future. And our sixth and final point is considering what you might have done differently. If you were given the chance to do this project again, what would you change? This ties in with point 4 and 5, but allows you to reflect upon the project as a whole from an outsider's perspective. This is really good practice in general, especially if you're planning on doing a similar project in the future, as you can come back to this evaluation in months or years to come and remember what you needed to be mindful of next time. Okay, and now on to tips and tricks. One of the most important tips I have when writing evaluations is substituting some common vocabulary choices for more professional ones. For example, substitute good for efficient, okay for acceptable, and bad for poor or inadequate. It immediately makes your writing feel more professional and of higher quality. This will take some getting used to, but my advice would be to write your evaluation as normal and then reread and change words afterwards. If you continue to do this for the next few times you write evaluations, or even other aspects of your writing, such as your research and pre-production, it will become second nature. Another tip is to gather as much external opinion as possible, from peers, teachers, even family and friends. In my own photography work, I will often capture a photograph that I love, and the rest of the series will be left alone and never published. However, with the help of an external influence, such as a friend or a family member, I can often notice photographs that I have previously disregarded and then find a new love for them. This can also be the case with the aspects of your project, such as short films that didn't work out the way you had planned, or a series of photographs that were different from your original intentions. Peer assessment and external feedback can give you something positive to discuss if you're struggling. And the final tip I have for you is plan your evaluation before you begin. Start by writing a subheading for each of the points discussed at the beginning of the video, and then begin to write some basic notes about what you can talk about during that section. Then you can develop these points, and before you know it, you have an evaluation. This tip is really useful if you struggle to get motivated when writing your evaluations, which I understand, or if you're struggling to make your evaluations better. Remember, when writing your evaluations, you need to ensure you are critically evaluating, which means you need to provide your opinion on your own work from both sides. You can always write your evaluations in advance and send these to any member of staff for them to read over and give you ideas for improvement. This does require some time management though, so be mindful of that. If you have any questions or anything you would like covering in future videos, leave a comment in the comments section below or drop me a message on Teams. But for now, see you in next week's video. Bye!